Oh, dearie dear. Hello, everybody. It's been a while, but this is something I've been planning from the get-go. I had said that once the new Nintendo console was revealed, I would be making a video on it. So here we are. Now, I'm going to start with the positives, and then kind of melt away into the negatives. So, for starters, the system looks impressive. You know, it's got a bigger screen, much better stand, an extra USB port on the top, or a second one, I should say. Um, the analog sticks are bigger, which hopefully that fixes the Joy-Con drift issue. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Joy-Cons, they now also function as a mouse, which is kind of interesting. Because it made me think like, oh, maybe we'll see a new Mario Paint in the future. The frame rate and resolution is improved, which, as I've said in videos before, that's not really the most important thing to me when it comes to gaming, but I know why it's important to other gamers, and it's obviously important to developers, because if a system is underpowered, it makes it harder for them to program games for it. It was another thing. Yeah, but anyway, voice chat. Finally got that right, sort of. You know, they uses a microphone built into the system, kind of like the DS. And as for the games, well, there was a lot of ports and stuff, which is to be expected to be from Nintendo. And then there's, finally a new Mario Kart game, which looks like a blast. I guess it's back to strictly Mario characters, which I guess some people prefer. Maybe they're not really ready for Nintendo Kart, if you catch my drift. No pun intended. There was a 3D Donkey Kong game called Donkey Kong Bonanza. That looks really cool. A sequel to Kirby Air Ride. Never expected to see that, because that was Kirby Air Ride. That was one of my first GameCube games. Like 20 years ago. And I still haven't, but I haven't played it in forever. But I played the crap out of that when I first got it. And, like I said, I never thought I would see a sequel, but that's great to see. And then Demon X Machina, very underrated Switch title. That's getting a sequel. That's kind of cool. So those were the games that just kind of stood out to me. But now we're going to talk about the concerns and frustrations. Yeah. So the first thing is the name of the system, Switch2. When they first said that a while back, I'm like, is this going to be another Wii U debacle? And now that I actually see the logo, it's just the Switch symbol with a 2 next to it. And I was like, this is giving me Wii U vibes. Like, that confused people. Like, even Nintendo's hardcore fans couldn't save the Wii U. And then there's the pricing. Now, first off, I'm not going to get into anything political, because I fucking hate politics with a passion, so none of that. But, so the system itself is $450, which I think is a relatively fair price. Like, it's not, yeah. But the games, $80. Yeah. Now, there's, some people are saying it's $80 digitally and $90 physically. Other people are saying that it's like, nope, it's just $80. That 90 thing that's like a price in another country or something. It's all like mixed up or something. So I don't know which one is the true story or not, but nevertheless, and this is a global thing. Everywhere in the world, it's the same pricing. It's roughly $80 for the games. In some countries, it's even more than that, which is insane. But and the thing of it is, like, I understand that. I know, as time goes on, I mean, over the years, game development has gotten much more expensive, and it was like Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which I still haven't bought yet, that game being $70, it's like, like, okay, I get it. You know, it's a massive open world game that's been delayed a number of times, so it's like, all right, it's $70, like, whatever. I kind of understand. I get it, but Mario Kart, like, it's a cartoony racing game, and you're gonna charge $80 for that? Why? Like, really? Is I mean, I can think of a few things. Like, one of the things, because again, this is something I was concerned about. It's like, oh, this is what happens. Companies get cocky, but and one of the things I keep seeing people bring up is that, well, like SNES games were, and back in the '90s, SNES and N64 games were $70, which is true. Like, I know some people are saying, other people are saying, no, that wasn't the case. I don't remember that, but I don't know. Maybe it depended on the state or county you were in. That maybe they were cheaper, or maybe it was the store you went to. I don't know. But I have a strong memory. I remember a number of SNES and N64 games being pretty expensive. But here's the thing. At least, like, I mean, back then we always, like, a lot of people bring up when it comes to that is like, yeah, some games were expensive, but at least we got the whole game, you know? I mean, there was no microtransactions back then, for one thing. And, I mean, yeah, there was the occasional update of a game. Like, there were times where they'd take a game and then keep updating it over and over and over again. Street Fighter 2. But another thing is that, take this right here, Mega Man X2. I remember my mom got me this for my birthday when I was 9. Yeah, my 9th birthday. And I do remember her paying a pretty hefty price for this. And it's like, oh, when I opened the box, and what's this? Oh yeah, here's something you don't see in with games anymore. Instruction manuals with all kinds of colors and stuff. So yeah, and not to mention these were bigger cartridges and stuff, so it made sense that these were more expensive. How often do you see instruction manuals and stuff anymore? You know what I'm saying? And the other thing is, when it comes to back then, like, yeah, games were expensive, but let me ask you something back then, but in the 90s, but how much were groceries back in the 90s? How much was mortgage and rent? How much was an average new car? You get what I'm saying here? The cost of living was a lot cheaper back then. Yo, why are, like, simple hobbies becoming a luxury? You know, and again, you gotta adjust to inflation and stuff, like, you know, because I know that whole thing, like, as years and decades go by, prices go up, like, and, you know, like I said. But that still doesn't change the fact that it's, like, I don't know. But, and another thing is, like I said, because this is what happens, companies get cocky when their systems do well. See, the Nintendo Wii sold over 100 million units, and now, part of the reason that system was so successful was because it's like, well, most of the people who bought it were soccer moms and grandparents who would play the thing who would play Wii Sports for like a week, and then they just put it in the closet or something. You know, then you had people buying the thing for retirement homes, which is nice. You know, gives senior citizens another gives them more activities to do and stuff. But see, Nintendo doesn't look at that. They just look at like the sales numbers and say like, oh wow, like everyone who bought a Wii is going to go out and buy a Wii U. Obviously, that wasn't the case because the system failed. It only sold about like 12, 13 million units. Or another example is the PS1, the original PlayStations by Sony. That sold also over 100 million units. Then the PS2 sold 155 million units, you know, being like a record for years. And then Sony got cocky and released the PS3 in 2006 for $600. Now, granted, that was a pretty powerful system, but it was like the Xbox 360 was pretty much on par with the PS3. That came out a year earlier, and it was half the price. And speaking of Xbox 360, that was another system that was successful. It sold, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it was like somewhere between like 75, 80 million or something. Not as successful as the other systems, but still a success. So then Microsoft got cocky, and because of what happens, they get cocky, they make stupid decisions. So with the Xbox One, when that was on the horizon, first off, it had to be connected to the internet in order for it to play games. Otherwise, you couldn't. Like if your console just randomly disconnected from the internet, or maybe you don't have strong internet, you're screwed. You'll be in the middle of a game and it would just shut off. Another thing was, the games, when you put them into the system, it would basically lock in and it would only recognize that particular console. So like the decades of letting your friends and family borrow a game, can't do that anymore. And then another thing was that the Kinect was going to be built into the console. So, and it would always be watching you. And then if, let's say you had a bunch of friends over watching you play, like not even playing the game with you, they were just, some of them were just kind of hanging out, watching or whatever. Like let's say you had like 6 or 7 people, including you. 4 of you playing the game, the other 3 are kind of just hanging around, watching or something. The Kinect would basically scan all these extra bodies and charge you for all of them. And there was a bunch of other things too, but the point being, Microsoft got a massive backlash, so they dropped all these ideas, fired Don Messick, or whatever the hell his name was, the brilliant mind behind all these shit. But the point was, at that point, the damage was done, and to this day, I'm sure it's been over a decade. I'm sure there's people who were still pissed about it, and who never forgave them, and I think that is a part of the reason Xbox One never sold well. Oh, that and the fact that the system severely lacked exclusives, and then the same with the PS4. That system sold like over 100 million units, but then the Sony was like, nah, we're not doing crossplay, which allows you to play the same game on different systems. Like, best example I can use is Fortnite, which is not my cup of tea, but let's say you have a gaming PC, one of your friends has a Nintendo Switch, another one of your friends has an Xbox One, and that same friend has a tablet that they play games on. Now the 4 of you could all play Fortnite together, despite all being on a different platform. But if one of your friends has like a PS4, PS5, you can't play it on there, because it's like, nope, you all have to have a PS4, PS5, otherwise it won't work. But the point being, see, this is what happens. The system sells well, the company gets cocky, makes stupid decisions, and the cycle just keeps repeating. And like I said, I had a feeling that was going to happen with this, because the Switch has actually, between all the different models, the Switch OLED, and the Switch Lite, has actually outsold the PS2, which is insane. I never thought anything would beat this PS2's sales numbers. But I don't know. So, and it's sad to say, but I feel like because Nintendo will always be around. I don't think Nintendo's ever gonna go out of business. They've been around since like, I think the 1930s, where they originally started as a greeting card company. Then they moved over to like selling noodles, the food noodles. Like, then they changed industries like 5 or 6 times until they eventually settled into video games and just stuck with that. But something I've started to realize ever since Nintendo Switch Online is that I think the Nintendo that we loved growing up in the 80s and 90s, I think that died with Satoru Iwata. Because, see, he was the kind of guy that if Nintendo was struggling, he'd be like, all right, you know what? I've got plenty of money in the bank. I don't mind taking a pay cut to keep this company afloat and keep our customers happy. But you don't really see that in the business world anymore. Now it's all like, all I can think of as the first boss from Sunset Riders, bury me with my money, But I don't know, the Switch 2, like I said, it's given between the pricing and then just the whole logo thing. I'm getting a lot of Wii U vibes from this thing, and honestly, I have a strong feeling the system's gonna fail. Maybe I'll be wrong. I've been wrong about things before, and I'm not afraid to admit that. But I don't know. It's not looking good. So, what do you folks think about this? What do you your thoughts on the Switch 2? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.